man, this is interesting, man. So anybody who follows any of the geopolitical stuff going on, Orange Man issuing his tariffs, he went full board with putting his tariffs out there. Then the backlash and the market started catering and cratering. The market started cratering, and there was fear of economic recession. So he dialed back the tariff stuff, but then he doubled down on the tariffs with China. So, but there's something about this guy's chutzpah,
Yeah, good word.
that you gotta you. I mean, you have to a certain degree admire this, even if you hate the guy. There's a certain level of this where it's like you got to say, man, the balls to do this. Um, so what's interesting about the tariff situation, though, is that it is drawing some eerie comparisons to Call of Duty Black Ops 2, the video game. Call of Duty, very popular video game series. It's a first person shooter. There's different series within the Call of Duty franchise. There's Black Ops. There's Modern Warfare, the classic games, which would depict like war going back to like World War I and World War II. There's Modern Warfare, which is, as it suggests, modern, and then there's Black Ops, which is it's kind of a combination of the two. You do stealth missions, you infiltrate foreign governments, and
Espionage.
yeah, espionage, espionage, destabilization.
Uh,
But there was a Call of Duty that came out, Black Ops 2, which is literally kind of the same exact thing that's happening in real life today with this tariff situation. And so a lot of people who are in the gaming space are pointing out some of these comparisons. And it's kind of crazy. So this says the plot of Call of Duty Black Ops 2 is stunningly similar to the U.S. China trade war. As the trade war between China and the United States continues to escalate, many gamers have noticed that recent developments bear a striking resemblance to the plot of the 2012 game Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Donald Trump announced sweeping reciprocal tariffs last week with a 10% rate applied to most countries. Trump imposed his harshest tariffs on China to the tune of 84%. Chinese president The president of China responded by placing export restrictions on rare earth metals. According to Time, these materials are used to create weapons, computer chips, and electronic cars. Since China produces around 90% of the world's rare earths, these restrictions could be damaging to the United States, especially since the purpose of tariffs is to promote domestic production. While Trump paused tariffs for 90 days for nearly all countries amid a plummeting stock market and fears of a recession, he increased tariffs on China to 125%. The simmering conflict between the two countries centered around China's decision to limit access to its rare earth elements may seem like a summary of what is currently happening, but it is the actual plot from Black Ops 2. The more astounding aspect of the game is the campaign takes place in 2025.
It's terrible.
See the X post below and check out Complex's ranking. So here's some of the here is some reaction on social media. Black Ops 2 is about to happen in real life. Characters and setting. Black Ops 2 begins in the year 2025, where China and the United States are in a Cold War after China stops exporting rare earth elements. In this future setting, militaries use robotic weaponry, cyber warfare, unmanned vehicles, and futuristic technology. So, yeah, you can see that the plot of the game is very much what is going on today, even down to the year in which this stuff is taking place. Um, so here's more reaction on Twitter. The year is 2025, and we're literally living through the Black Ops 2 campaign. Breaking China restricts exports of 7 rare earth metals to all countries. So yeah, man. You know, the developers of Call of Duty Black Ops 2 couldn't have foreseen that their video game, which sold a lot of units back then, was a foreshadowing of future events to come. What do you make of that?
Oh man, this to me is a little weird, man. Excuse me while I grab my foiled hat over here. To me, man, this is wild stuff, man. I don't know. This is a wild coincidence. I would say that. Um, the situation going on with China though, it does. And, somebody can call me whatever, bro. It concerns me. I'm not going to sit here and act like I've got the chutzpah. Uh, hey man, this is concerning, and the reason being is China has been playing. I mean, they have been playing chess for decades now, slowly but surely positioning themselves just in case somebody wanted to buck. And right now, America's bucking. For what reasons, I don't know. But we're bucking, and they have something in place for us. And as I said, man, those things are important for our technologies or weapons. Our weapons, ah, America loves its weapons, man. Oh yeah, man, that's concerning, and it's concerning among other things. So hopefully, this can get settled. But as far as when it comes to this video game, man, yeah, man, this definitely fits what they were talking about in there. Um, I'm not a big predictive programmer guy. People out here like to talk about predictive programming, but to me, bro, this sounds like somebody knew what was up. Personally, now the year on the head, the actual rare metals thing. I mean, there's other things that China could, I guess, potentially do in a video game. But to me, that sounded a little accurate, man. A little too close for comfort, if you ask me. So the way I think these things work personally is that I do think part of um, part of what goes on in these movies, these TV shows, and stuff like that, they do have a script that is planned for the future, and in those movies, games, I guess you throw games in there now, but it was just reserved for movies and TV shows. But now I think what they do is they put those things out there for their own. If you put it out there and you use the people's law of attraction, it works. And I think that the reason why they put things out there is that they make it possible in your mind's eye, which there makes it possible on a mass scale. So I think they put this out there in a video game, um, because those games, by the way, to me were coincidental. So there's something that and Candace Owens speaks about this as far as um, certain funding going to certain things for movies or whatever. So like if they fund something in a movie or a TV show, they'll fund stuff where like the president has a heart. You know, the president is, he has a heart, a heart of gold, and he's nice, he's this and whatever. And the government actually pays for things in Hollywood. Well, in order to keep the people in line and in order, you have to issue your own forms of propaganda. So they don't just do it in the school system; they also do it in films and TV shows. And so, why not take that stuff to video games? So when they were introducing these modern warfare things to me, for one hand, I felt like it was military recruitment, and I felt like it was for other reasons for people to buy into and make video games for people to get into war games. And so I felt like it was a push behind that. And so for one of these games that was pushing military stuff for on the younger generation, because people are not going to sit there and watch a recruiter or listen to a recruiter anymore. But if they grew up playing Black Ops or Call of Duty, this, since it was a little person, they'd be more inclined to join. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I thought it was. But for them to also put something in there that they're planning for the future, yeah, I wouldn't put it past them. So I probably did a Marcus Freeman there and said a whole bunch of nothing. But I don't have a man unit on. But and another thing is, hey man, you gotta try to say what you can for the algorithms. But what are your thoughts, man, on the Black Ops game, man? Just having what we're currently living in 2025, and the internet finding the coincidence quite intriguing. What are your thoughts, man?
I think if you and I wanted to write a script for a movie and try to project some aspect of human existence in the future and write a story based on things that we see happening, we'd be able to do it with some relative level of accuracy.
That's fair.
I kind of feel like the developers of this game they probably had some people involved who were like, let's just make a game about this because we see what's happening, and let's put it in a video game is because we kind of feel like this is where things are headed. You know what I'm saying? So I don't necessarily know. It could be propaganda. Hell, I don't know. What do I know? I was playing the games myself. Now it didn't make me want to go and list, but I did play them, and I kind of feel like they have people involved in the creation of those games who were educated in various geopolitical areas, and they were involved in sort of scripting how the game turns out. And you got a lot of people out here who, because of their knowledge and how much they know about geopolitics, they might be able to predict some stuff. Now, the fact that the game had it all the way down to the year, that's pretty creepy. That's the part to me that's like, wow. Like even the year they had, that to me is crazy. But other than that, I kind of feel like it's not beyond the pale to think that people can develop a game, and the plot of the game is China and the US going into some sort of a Cold War involving, resource acquisition, because China and the US kind of been beefing for a long time now.
That's fair.
So it's like it's kind of one of those things where if you read the tea leaves, you can kind of see this stuff coming. Um, there's a movie that came out way back in the 80s called War Games. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Um, it was in the early 80s, 82, 83, something like that. And it's about a kid who accesses a military supercomputer or something. And he's able to utilize his hacker skills essentially to set the stage for like nuclear war and World War III and all of this other stuff. And going back then, it sort of set the stage for this ongoing conversation around things like nuclear codes and cybersecurity and all of that. But the thing about it is, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that this stuff is like delicate, and the people who have access to this, they're one button away from like sending us into the abyss. And another example that I can think of too, there's a TV show, House of Cards. It was one of the more, like, back when Netflix was really like becoming a thing with creating original programming. House of Cards was one of the more popular shows on Netflix. Political drama, a lot of backstabbing, shenanigans, murder, death, all of that kind of stuff in politics. And I forget which season it was, but it was like the third season or the fourth season. I forget the season. Somebody let us know in the comments. But the plot involved manipulating social media and the internet to influence election outcomes.
Mhm.
And what was one of the prevailing things that came out of 2020 and 2024 was what was going on both in country as well as overseas with, hackers and cyber outfits coming in, infiltrating and trying to influence, how things were playing out with politics in the election through the utilization and the weaponization, quite literally, of social media. And that season of that show was at least, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years ago, maybe. I don't know the exact year that came out. So my whole thing is it like intentional propaganda? I'm not sure. It could be, but I also kind of feel like the playbook on this stuff, if you study it enough, becomes very obvious, which makes the eventual outcome all the more insane when you consider the fact that you can foresee it coming a mile away. And that's the part about it to me that's like, it's no secret that this stuff is going on. That's why I'm saying, like, you're saying you're gonna put your tinfoil hat on, and I'm sitting here saying I agree with you, but at this point, I don't even think it's tinfoil. Like, a lot of this stuff is right here in front of us, but people are kind of willfully ignoring it, I guess, out of blissful ignorance. Like, people just kind of want to remain oblivious to the fact that this stuff is all a possibility. But a lot of these books, the literature, even dystopian literature, I don't know how many times on this channel I've mentioned Judge Dredd. I'm not playing when I bring that up. I feel like we're headed in that direction. I feel like economic disparity is setting us down the road of a dystopian future where I've already talked about how there's an eradication of the middle class. I'm not saying this to pay a lip service. I truly believe this. There's going to be poor people living in slum conditions, and then there's going to be rich people living in a gated, sectioned off, situation where they live in luxury and luxurious accommodations, and everybody living in the slums is getting rounded up by, law enforcement, getting thrown into concentration camps and indentured servitude. That it sounds like something out of a dystopian comic book like Judge Dredd, but after a while, some of this stuff starts to become more and more realistic. So, I feel like a lot of that literature from back in the day can give us some insight on where we're headed. And it isn't really a conspiracy or propaganda at that point. It just becomes studying what happened in the past to predict what can happen in the future. And it's not beyond the pale to say that this stuff can actually happen. You know, I don't know what year Black Mirror came out on Netflix, but if you watch that show, a lot of that stuff is actually happening now.
Yeah.
With people living in VR worlds, people not communicating in person, people living through their avatars, interpersonal communication, the erosion of families, like a lot of that stuff, a lot of the stuff depicted in that show, where it was like an admonishment, like, hey man, if we don't be careful, a lot of this stuff is really gonna happen. It's happening. It's actually happening. So at this point, I don't even really think it's a far cry. Yeah, it was in a video game, but hey, if you know enough of history and you involve enough people who know enough about geopolitics, you can put some stuff in a video game that's predictable. And that's kind of where I feel like that's kind of what I feel happened. And if you look at books, read Anne Rand's The Fountainhead, read George Orwell 1984, and read Aldous Huxley Brave New World. If you read those three books, a lot of that stuff, Anne Rand wrote The Fountainhead, I believe, in the 40s. I believe. I'm gonna look it up when I let you go. But that book has been around for almost 100 years, 70, 80 years, I want to say. Brave 1980 World is a little more recent. Brave New World also is very old. But if you read those three books, we're living that right now. And they didn't have the technology that people have now that can sort of put you in position to be a little more predictive. These were people who just were smart enough to see what's coming with humans as we continue to evolve with industrialization. So I really don't think it's that much of a stretch to see how there are similarities between this game and what's really going on. Especially if you get a lot of these sophisticated people who, you got nowadays people who write movie scripts and direct movies are getting involved in the creation of video games. Some of these video games, you play some of these video games today, it's like you're playing a movie almost. And if they can write movies predicting some of this stuff, you can damn sure bet that they can create video games doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, and all that's fair, man. And my point is that shows like Black Mirror aren't a coincidence.
No, they're not. They're absolutely not. Yeah.
And I feel as though part of their job is to show us what our future is going to be. And not in a situation where them predicting it. It's more or less is putting it out there. And much like how there's an individual consciousness, there's a collective consciousness. And as an individual, if you sit around and you start mulling around with some dark thoughts, you're going to have a dark reality. Granted, the same way it goes for the collective consciousness. And if you produce content that has these Orwellian futures, then people are going to start living in it. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy as a collective consciousness. Because when things were happening, people was like, man, I saw this in Black Mirror. Hey, I saw this in Black Mirror. It's something that happened. It's like, man, they had an episode about that on Black Mirror. I'm like, what? And so at some point, because I've never watched the show, but at some point it got to the point to me, I was like, oh, that's one of their shows. House of Cards was one of their shows too. Movie Wag the Dog was one of their movies. Like, they make movies about things. They make movies about things because it's part of, they need our help to do it. And so the way that we do it is by putting it in our collective consciousness. Now, of course, there's other things going on here, but me on the elementary level of it, whenever things like this pop up, I do leave room and grace for happenstance. That, yeah, the geopolitical thing. And
No, well, see, I don't even think that's happenstance though. Like, I think it is literal predictability. You know what I'm saying? Like, my approach with this stuff is, you study if you study history enough and you look at the way humans adapt, react to, respond to new and emerging technologies and ways of living, at a certain point things become predictable.
yes,
You know,
yeah.
now is it going to happen exactly the way one may predict it? Perhaps not. But I think that you can sort of develop certain forms of whatever, whether it's art, movies, music, video games, whatever that thing is, you can develop it with a relative level of predictability given knowledge of history and knowledge of human behavior. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
like, I feel like me and you were saying the same thing, honestly. Like,
Mhm.
I think we're using different terminology. Like, I am more so on the line that it is intentional,
Mhm.
but it's intentional for the purposes of, exemplifying possibility. And so it's like, okay, well, you can take this knowledge if you want and the possibility of this, and you can choose to ignore it, or we can collectively do something about making sure that it doesn't happen in this way. And at that point, we have that choice to make. But I think that it is entirely predictable. You know, I don't think that, I honestly, I'm at the point where, happenstance, I wouldn't even go that far. I think it's developing something based on your knowledge of history
Mhm.
to come up with a predictive future, and you're packaging it in the form of a particular piece of art and entertainment to sort of lighten the mood with it, but it is nevertheless something that you should pay attention to.
Fair.
You know,
And
it,
I'll just say this, and because I hear that, I agree with that, but at the same time, there's a you can't just get a Hollywood movie made. You can't just get a video game made. You know, there's you can't just record an album and have everybody listen to it. There's gatekeeping going on. And there's, they don't just always put the best work out there. They put work out there for reasons. And it isn't to educate us on human predictability. It's creating a self-fulfilling prophecy for the future. It's creating, it's not predicting. They're writing the future and telling us that's what we're going to live in. So then people start living in it. And so that's the part about it that I go, yeah, well, yeah, they predicted it because they told us it was going to happen, and our collective consciousness made it happen as a group. And so the same people that chill with Weinstein were the same people that party with Epstein and party with Diddler. They're multi-crossing industries. They're multi-crossing political parties, and all these people are doing the same things, pushing towards, in my world, pushing towards the same thing. And they want us living in this Orwellian future because somebody's got to control that, and there has to be somebody that's being controlled, and that's everybody that's buying the TV, they're buying the movies, buying the books, buying the games, and they want those people, those consumers, to live in their futures. So these things get pushed and pumped. There's no other reason why they would make us read 1984 in school like that if they didn't want us to think that that's what a future could be. And so for other things, because there's a whole nother future that could exist that is a part of human nature, because there's good people in the world too, and there's people that want to see positive change in the world, but that's not what is being pushed and promoted and predicted. And so I think there's influence to push and promote certain types of futures, and we don't have to live in Mad Max. We don't have to live in Judge Dredd, but they keep telling us that every summer, just like how they tell us every summer that we were slaves, just like how they tell us, it's the same type of program. And so, no, we have a new world we can choose, a new lane we can choose, and we don't have to choose what Hollywood's been telling us. We don't have to choose what popular books they've been telling us. We can choose the world that we want for us, and we don't have to listen to these same people that we've been listening to for so on and so forth. So hopefully that, but that, because I know we're on the same page, but
no, we differ in that regard. We do
right.
differ there because I kind of feel like I if it were me,
Mhm.
I could very well make a movie. Like I could 100% see myself writing a movie, and the plot of the movie is like men no longer trying to create actual relationships with women. They're just trying to buy sex all the
Yeah,
time.
bro. Yeah.
Right. So like I 100% can see myself writing that movie out, but I'd be writing that movie to show people, if we are not careful, this is the future that we have ahead of us, not necessarily to gatekeep my way into creating a future and ushering people into that future.
Mm.
So we're
No, this is what I would say to that. That's no different than a rapper who's been hearing about certain types of music that's been coming out since he's been little, and then thinks in a certain kind of way and a certain vibration. And then when he decides to pick up a mic, like you decide to pick up a pen and write a book, then or a movie, then he decides to talk about the stuff that he sees in his community. He don't have to rap about that. There's another future that you can write about. But once you come up with that movie idea, the movie studios that is interested, much like how these record labels are interested in hearing in death, murder, and kill, it will get picked up and promoted. So you could make a movie that is talking about it, but that movie is no different than drill music. And that's my point. And there's a whole nother lane, a whole nother way your brain can think, and a whole new reality. And so people, the individuals, they think, and this is why people don't succeed much whenever they're doing the same thing they always do, hang around the same people they always hang around, because they're in the same realm of thought. But
yeah,
once
but
you get,
nobody hanging around the same people that they always hang around are hearing messages about doing something different.
that's what I'm saying.
What they
So
tend to hear the majority of the time is, this is what we have, and so we have to make the best of it.
right,
And
and
those
then
are two different things.
but what I'm saying, but when that person hangs around people who are getting it, who got it, then they think different. It's like listening to different types of music. Your brain just fires off differently.
Yeah, but there's a way that tonally things can be different. Like, I think we're going down a rabbit hole at this point, but like but I think that there is a difference between creating something that um perpetuates a reality that people have been led to believe is one that is inevitable, and tonally creating something that says, this is a reality that you don't want to be a part of, and here are the consequences of continuing down this path. I think those are two different things. And I think that you can achieve both of those things independently. I am not necessarily a fan of creating any sort of narrative which suggests a perpetuation of a reality that is damaging, while also not offering up an alternative, but rather saying this is the reality and so you must live in this squalor. What I have appreciated from time to time in the past is the creation of certain things which suggest to people that doing it in this way is problematic. Here's what you can expect, and here's a way that you can change it for the better. I feel like sometimes showing people what can happen is just as good as presenting them with the alternative. But it's I guess it's a difference in perspective with that. But I hear what you're saying. But I do think that there is a way to go about doing it differently. There's doing it in the gratuitous way, but then there's also doing it in the way which says, hey, this is not good for us. And a lot of times people do need shocks to the system, because otherwise they'll continue to do what they've always known, because they're always consuming the stuff which says this is where you should be.
And I hear that. And my thing is that the masses don't even get into this level of conversation, and they just listen, consume, and that's what the future is going to be for me. That's what the future is going to be for us. And that's the part of the programming that I feel is
Well, I
pretty.
don't know. I don't know what to do about that.
I don't
Like,
know about
yeah,
the.
yeah. I
I
don't.
don't
I don't
know.
know. I don't know what you can do about people who can't tell the difference between, like, you know admonishment and, like, non-admonishment. If that's even a word, I don't know what to do about that. But you know, yeah, I don't know how solvable that one is. But I just don't think that all of this fanfare that comes out is done so in an effort to usher us into a reality. I still do believe to a certain extent in free will, and which makes me more sad, because I think people, due to the fact that we retain the power to change a lot of this, nevertheless decide not to. I feel like people be on the fringes and they just decide that they don't care, and they just decide not to.
More conversations like this, bro. We're throwing free
Yeah.
will into the atmosphere,
I
man.
will, and yeah, I was so Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead was written in 1943. So I was right about that one. And another one, Children of Men, written by P.D. James, that came out in 1992. And that was a book that depicts a dystopian future due to mass infertility, which is something that is relatively relevant nowadays,
What's going
when
on?
you consider how all of this information and research coming out about the stuff that we are putting in our bodies is having adverse effects in a lot of different ways. So I just think a lot of this stuff is predictable. And I don't know, maybe the way my mind works, when I read these books, I'm not saying to myself, let's go here. I'm saying let's prevent this. And maybe everybody else is looking at this and they're saying, or they're not even thinking, they're just watching a movie or reading a book. I don't know how you can consume this stuff and not think about what it is that you're looking at. I don't know how you do that, but
That's why they do it. That's why Inception, man. They said, hey, if I tell you, don't think about pink elephants, what are you gonna think about? What are you gonna think about pink elephants?
green
But
giraffe.
if you know what I'm saying, but if it's done in a particular way, it'll be a thought of your own. And the inception here is that how do you not think about the future like it's going to be Judge Dredd? They gave you Judge Dredd, and my thing is that that's not going to be my future, you know, and that's not going to be the future I live in. That's what they told me. You see what I'm saying? And the whole thing is that you can see how it can be there, but it won't be mine.
Right. No, I get it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we do. We think about that differently. We do. Because when I see Judge Dredd, I say to myself, we need to make sure that that's not the future.
Okay, yeah,
That's what I think about when I see it.
that's what I
Yeah.
think because it ain't gonna be mine. Yeah, it ain't gonna be mine.
Oh well. I used to play Call of Duty, so
It's all right, bro.
I used to unwind. I'm not ashamed of it.
Hey man,
I come
I live
home.
in the future, man.
I
I got my own MKO trophy here,
Hey
man.
man, I come home from work. I come home from work and put on my 360 and play that campaign mode. I wasn't too much of an online guy. I like playing the single player campaign mode and just the storyline and just getting in there and just tearing shit up. So
Hey man, I'm down with it, dog.